All right, thanks for listening to another episode of Remake Rewind, the podcast where we said remakes or reboots should have happened. I'm Mike, as always. With me, I've got my buddy Alex. What's up, man?
Good morning, Remake Rewind.
We're recording in the morning on a Saturday. This is kind of a special episode. We debated waiting a little bit of time to do this because the Snyder Cut, we're talking about Justice League today, the Snyder Cut dropped on Thursday, the 18th of March. And our episode was supposed to drop on the 19th, the day after. So we toyed with doing a regular episode, watching this, and releasing this in a couple of weeks on our normal schedule, or doing a bonus episode. But we didn't really want to bang out two episodes in 1 week, with this being almost 6 hours worth of content in this one alone. So we decided to postpone the episode a little bit by a couple of days so we can actually get Justice League when it's relevant. So yeah, we're up not early. It's 9 a.m. right now.
Earlier than we usually record.
We normally record at like 5 to 7 p.m. on a Monday. So Saturday morning, bright and early, 9 a.m.
I didn't have anything
talking Justice League. No, not really. Not at all. It's still the pandemic. The light's at the end of the tunnel. We can see it. Everybody can get their vaccine May 1st. I already got my first dose of the vaccine. You got your first dose of the vaccine. Yeah. Things are looking up. There's a glimmer. There's a glimmer.
I did just read about a high school that went back to remote learning after the largest outbreak since the beginning of the pandemic. So I have a feeling it's going to be sort of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back situation.
I definitely think it will be, because there are going to be a lot of people. I was just reading this article, and it was talking about like the people who are saying they still won't get it, and it's going up. The people who will get it. At one point, there was a point where like 60% of Americans said they would not get the vaccine, and now it's down to like 48%. So more than half are saying they'll get it. But there are certain demographics, which I'm sure you can guess which demographics are saying that they will not get it.
People who own 3 or more cats.
No, but yeah, the right-wing males, or right conservative males, and Trump supporters are the 2 largest groups that will not get the vaccine, which I think is absurd because they're the ones pushing for everything to open and not wear masks and whatnot. But you know what? Whatever.
Now, what's the Venn diagram of that group with the group that pushed for the Snyder Cut to be released?
I'm sure there's a pretty big overlap. I'm sure there's a lot of neckbeards, too.
Did you like that segue?
Yeah, I did. Thanks, bud. Getting us back on track.
Yeah.
Just like the Justice League Snyder Cut, or Zack Snyder's Justice League, got the DCEU back on track. Maybe.
It did and it didn't, right?
Right. And we'll get into it. So I'm just going to say up front, we've been talking about this episode for the better part of a year, since they announced it in May of last year that they were going to be doing this. And neither one of us were really on board for this. We thought there was no real reason. Let's move on. We're just going to be placating like toxic fanboy and kind of thing. And we're going to start seeing a bunch of this. And it's not necessarily a trend that we thought was necessary. And I thought this was going to be really painful. Like, I vividly remember watching Justice League in theaters in 2017 at the Grove. And I was primed to have the best movie theater experience ever. Like, this was back in the day with when MoviePass was still king. AMC A-list wasn't even a glimmer in our eyes yet. And so you had to like go to the theater to get your ticket. No getting your tickets early. And I went on launch day, the debut of Justice League, as we were getting ready to do a Batman special on Remake Rewind long before your time on the show. And so I just assumed it was going to be busy, and it was. But I drove to the Grove just hoping I'd be able to get some sort of seat in one of the shows. So I got there, and there was a really good seat for a show starting like 45 minutes after I got there. So I went and sat at the bar and had a really great conversation with the bartender there. We were talking about music. He gave me a couple free drinks. He gave me like a couple of vouchers to get like free popcorn and free soda at the concessions line. So I was primed to have the best theater going experience you can have. I was socially lubricated. I had this libations, had free popcorn.
Yeah.
Everything should have been great. And I walked out of that movie thinking it was one of the worst movies I'd ever seen. So all year I've been expecting to hate this episode, and I was surprised. I did not hate even the Joss Whedon version this time around.
You didn't hate the Joss Whedon version?
I didn't like it, but you know, I would have given it an F in 2017. Today I give it probably like a D+, C-.
F minus. Yeah, I went into the Justice League, the Joss Whedon Justice League, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever. not expecting anything. I kind of knew that it was not going to be great, but you know, this is a time before Joss Whedon has been canceled and is coming off of the Avengers. He's still a darling of the genre and whatnot. And I didn't expect it to be as bad as it was. And even with low expectations, I was severely disappointed. Like, it's an incoherent, borderline unwatchable movie. It's crazy how watchable you can make something by throwing money at it. You know, the special effects and seeing our favorite heroes or whatever in crazy costumes and this and that makes it a little bit more watchable, I guess. But it's not a very fun movie. And you know, having said that though, I've hate watched it a few more times because I'm just like fascinated by it. I've shown it to other people just to confirm that I'm not crazy, that it is actually that interesting of a disaster. That's bad. What it's like. It's like a car crash.
So what's weird is now a lot of studios won't admit that they do this, and I'm pretty sure there are a lot of theaters that do. And you and I are both proponents of going to the theater to watch movies when it's safe. I go when pre-pandemic, I was at the movie theater at least twice a week.
Yeah,
pretty much every week. But often I find I enjoy the theater experience more than I enjoy watching movies at home. And I watch a movie almost every single day at home. But often I think when I watch it on Blu-ray, it could be that the screen's a little bit smaller, so the resolution is compacted a little bit more. But I often find that like the special effects or heavy CGI scenes tend to look better at home because it's not stretched as much. I also think that the studios clean up the CGI a little bit during post-production between the launch and the Blu-ray launch. Because I remember Justice League having some of the worst CGI that I ever saw, like the big scene when they're going over the history of the mother boxes, and Steppenwolf shows up and has to fight the Age of Heroes, and we see the Atlanteans and the Amazonians or the Amazons, and you know, all the aliens and the Green Lanterns. I remember thinking that looked like an Xbox 360 level kind of CGI. And this time around, I thought it looked better, and I don't know if that was because they had cleaned up the CG between the theater launch and the Homer launch, and probably remastering it for HBO Max. But I thought it looked a lot better. Like, it still wasn't good CGI. Like, Marvel still is significantly better for their 100% CGI characters, but this wasn't as bad. So I think having the 4 years of bashing this movie going into it, I was pleasantly surprised that it was almost watchable. Almost. It was still really bad. It was a chore, but I honestly thought this was going to be an ordeal, and I came out actually kind of enjoying just getting this done.
Yeah. I feel like between this and the Age of Ultron rewatch, which, you know, we said we enjoyed, but all the like cliche Whedon stuff is just so obvious.
It is super obvious,
and it's so like there's such a tightrope between Whedon being clever and Whedon being like obnoxious and tropey.
And I think the issue,
and his own tropes, not just genre.
Yeah,
tropes.
with him is he was, like you mentioned, you called him earlier, like the sci-fi darling or the genre darling. Most nerds loved him between, you know, obviously his work on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and then Firefly and Serenity, and then of course the first Avengers movie. So at this point, when people heard that he was being brought into Justice League, people were like, "Oh shit, he's gonna fix DCEU." Yeah. So a lot of people were genuinely excited, and I think his ego after Avengers skyrocketed because he went and did his like Much Ado About Nothing that he shot with all of his friends in his house, and
right.
It wasn't a bad movie. It was okay. It was fine, but he went and did something like that because he felt he had the clout that he can get it done. He famously kind of had a falling out with Marvel. Thought he knew better than Kevin Feige and the committee. Now, granted, Age of Ultron is what changed the Marvel kind of formula going forward, and that's what allowed Kevin Feige to take the reins away from Ike Perlmutter and whatnot. And Joss Whedon being vocal, with him and Jon Favreau being vocal about the making movies by committee under Marvel, really changed things. I felt like his ego was so up there that a lot of the decisions made in this movie, because they gave him a lot of free reign. Like from what I read, his only criteria was that the movie had to be 2 hours or under, and that was the only feedback that he was really given. on the front end. And then once they were in editing, they had to clean some stuff up. But he was given almost free reign to rewrite the script, reshoot. They shot. I've read reports anywhere from 80 to 90% of the footage in the 2017 theatrical version is reshot footage.
Yeah,
from Joss.
It is crazy how much they threw away from Zach. It's crazy how much money they spent on this thing, all said and done, between already being, you know, one of the tentpole releases for that year, and then reshooting it with a totally overpriced director, and then giving Zack Snyder
they reshot
another $70 million.
Twice. Because I remember I was trying to find, like when we covered Batman when this first came out in 2017, because the Snyder Cut has had so much press and so much demand for 4 years, it's actually kind of hard to find some of the articles about the production prior to the movie coming out. But Zack Snyder did reshoots on this movie. And then Joss Whedon came in and did extensive 80 to 90% of the movie reshoots. And what's really weird about it is even though they only used 10% of the footage from Zack Snyder, it's very obvious because in Ben Affleck's face and his wig, like I could totally tell, even though there's only 10%, like there's so totally, like his hair changes constantly, his face is a little chubbier in the theatrical version, especially in certain scenes for the action bits, like the opening scene where he's like fighting the parademon with the rooftop burglar.
Yeah,
like
one of my least favorite parts of that movie.
He's a little chunky in the face, and it's, you know, it's not Ben Affleck's fault. Like this movie is why, unfortunately, he has said that he kind of fell off the horse and, you know, went back to alcohol and smoking and gambling and everything, because he devoted so much of his time to this damn movie, having to stay in shape, and then, you know, putting on some weight again because he thought he was done, and then having to go back, and then all the drama with the Batman that he it's kind of fucked up Ben Affleck's life, this movie. So yeah. It's a little weird, but you can definitely tell. I think we should start getting into the movie, since we have this movie's 2 hours, exactly 2 hours with the credits, and then the new one is 4 hours and 2 minutes with the credits. So we've got 6 hours of content, and it's pretty crazy how little overlap there actually is. They are drastically different movies.
Yeah. Well, why don't you start us off?
All right, so Justice League kicks off the 2017 one. This is supposed to be a continuation of the story brought on by really Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. You know, this Man of Steel really is kind of a standalone movie, because BVS kind of essentially stole the Superman sequel. Originally, it was going to be Superman 2, Batman v Superman, but it really just became more of a Batman movie.
I think I told you this on our text chat, on our text message thread. But I think that's really like the original sin of these movies, for me anyway. Like, I don't think that Superman was developed enough for Justice League to be all about his death and rebirth and have it have any weight. Like, even if Zack Snyder made the absolute best version of his movie, which I guess he kind of did, maybe it'd be better without the epilogue, but best case scenario, the movie just wasn't set up well enough for us to give a shit about Superman.
Yeah, so
we never saw him doing any Superman stuff.
Yeah, so essentially this movie is it's a lot like the early Marvel movies. There's a MacGuffin. Essentially, we have the mother boxes, which are like the Infinity Stones. They need to collect 3 Infinity Stones. If you put the 3 Infinity Stones together, it basically terraforms a planet so Darkseid can come and take over. And he's got his little underling, Steppenwolf, who's kind of being his Silver Surfer. Darkseid is Galactus. Steppenwolf is his Silver Surfer, going through and making sure the planets are ripe for the taking. And Batman is going through and assembling the team in the worst way possible for his secret identity. And by the end, they realize they need to bring Superman back from the dead, so that way he can fight the aliens for them. And that's pretty much what the plot of both of them is. But getting into this one starts with a opening, like you kind of alluded to it. Like the opening is just like, oh my God, Superman was so great. He was the greatest thing that ever happened to the planet. We all love him. But Man of Steel, nobody knew who he was. Like, he shows up as Superman in the last 45 minutes of that movie, and goes on to
destroys a downtown area.
Right. And honestly, like, I was okay with that. Like, if they took lessons from that, and like Batman v Superman and subsequent movies, he's just like, oh, Superman realized he is so powerful. He needs to be more responsible. He needs to try to learn to take fights out of the cities or whatever, and try to protect people. and he's going to do his best not to kill people going forward. Like, if that movie transformed Superman to be a better person, a more hopeful person, I would have been on board with everything. I don't think Man of Steel is a bad movie.
Yeah. I enjoyed it in the theater.
I've enjoyed it in subsequent viewings. Like, we covered it for this show, and I enjoyed it. I think Henry Cavill is an engaging, charismatic actor, and like, I think he's a fantastic Superman that just hasn't been given a great Superman script yet.
Yeah.
Like, if you were to take like the 70s, I think it's 1977 that the first Superman movie came out from Richard Donner. I think if you updated that script and made it less corny with like the visual gags and everything, like, I think Henry Cavill could be on the level of Chris Reeve, given the right script, because he's very engaging in other things.
That was the promise of Man of Steel, because Man of Steel was before. I mean, I guess we kind of knew who Zack Snyder was at that time, but it still felt like it was before all the DC stuff. So it felt like it was earlier, and Christopher Nolan's name was all over the place. So we were like, oh man, we're going to get the Dark Knight treatment for Superman. Like, and not that it's going to be darker, just that it's going to be treated like an art film, essentially.
Yeah.
And I remember being so excited about that aspect of it. And then like that, maybe in the future, Christian Bale and Henry Cavill could like meet up and occupy the same universe, and none of that was delivered on.
No. So Batman v Superman, that whole movie, we're not going to go into that movie in detail, but that whole movie is about, there's literally multiple court scenes in that movie talking about like, should we allow Superman to be Superman? And it's Batman wanting to go and fight and kill Superman. It's Lex Luthor wanting to go and fight and kill Superman because he's dangerous. Like Lex Luthor is a villain, but he believes that Superman really is the worst thing for the planet. So it's like the whole Batman v Superman is literally the world being afraid of superhumans. And then he dies at the end. And they instead of, I mentioned it would have been great if they took him killing Zod and destroying the city and found a way for him to be like, going forward, anytime I fight something, I'm going to pull them away from the city. In this, that just happened to be like when they were fighting Doomsday, which once again, another plot that they rushed. Like, you shouldn't be having the thing that kills Superman in his second movie before he's really the symbol of hope, justice, and the American way that early. But there's just like a line of dialogue in that movie. They're like, oh, it's a good thing he's fighting him on that abandoned island after 5 p.m. because nobody's there. And
I think Anderson Cooper delivered that too.
Yeah, something like that. So you're right. This wasn't deserved. And this movie opens up with, obviously, Mustache Gate is a thing. So between the two different reshoots, Henry Cavill was doing Mission Impossible 6, which is a far better film than Justice League. I fucking love that movie. He just did like the reloading his arms like, from the bathroom scene. But he had grown his mustache, and Paramount was not going to let him shave his mustache, which Warner Brothers said, hey, it's way easier to CGI a mustache on than to mustache it off, or CGI it off. Is there any way he can shave it and you guys CG it on, and we will pay for the CGI mustache? And Paramount's like, nah, fuck you guys. You guys already did your reshoots. You should have made a better movie the first time.
Yeah, honestly, baller move.
I mean, it's their prerogative. It's pretty fucked up because it ruined this movie. But like, the most egregious of like the mustache gate lip action is in this first opening scene. You see these kids talking to Superman, and they got like their vertical cell phone. You're like, hey, Superman, you're the best thing that's ever happened in the world. Take a picture with me. And he's like, hey, kids, I'm Superman. Finger guns. I'm a cool guy. And then we're supposed to be led to believe that he's the greatest thing that's ever happened to the world. And that's just not what was presented in the previous two movies.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there really just needed to be a Superman 2, in between Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman.
Yeah, and he has like this little thing where they're like, does your S really mean hope? He goes, yes, it means hope. They're like, but it looks like an S. Same joke from the first movie. He goes, yeah, but it's like a river. It wanes, but it comes back or whatever. And he's like trying to make this like symbol. And it's just like, no, dude, like you're very heavy-handed attempt to make Superman like this beacon of hope like doesn't work with just this little 30-second cell phone clip. Like, you guys should have put in the work in subsequent or previous films, and you should have had subsequent films after Man of Steel to build up this universe instead of rushing to catch up to Marvel. Like, we're just gonna get the Marvel comparison up front. They wanted to catch up to Avengers versus make their own Avengers, which Justice League, if done correctly, should have been a multi-billion-dollar movie.
Yeah.
Instead, this made like $800 million.
And like we should have gotten a Justice League 2 by now. Like, there should have been sequels.
like Wonder Woman made more. And I'm not saying that Wonder Woman shouldn't have made a ton of money, but there's no reason. Like when you look at all the Marvel movies, none of the solo movies make anywhere near the Avengers level of money.
Yeah.
This should have been a $1.5 to $2 billion movie, and it wasn't because of bad press from subsequent or previous films, and then just the trailers looked bad and the reviews were bad, and they spent like they made like $635 million off of this movie, and they say that they lost because the production was between 250 and 350 million before the reshoots. Plus, you have all the promotional stuff. Like they essentially, like I read that they needed about $1 billion to break even on this movie.
Yeah.
Which is insane. So the next opening scene of this movie is like this rooftop scene, which is like I read afterwards that this was supposed to be like a comical scene, and this is like the one scene. Yep, this scene was supposed to be comical, and then this was like the one scene that Warner Brothers like said no, we want it to be a little bit more serious. But essentially, Batman.
What's funny about this scene is I'll let you describe it first, I guess.
Yeah. So Batman is like prowling, watching this like burglar, like old school, like 30s cinema burglar with like the little cap on his head and everything.
He's got a burlap
like
sack full of silver.
Yeah, it almost looks like he should have one of those like black masks that go around his eyes, like a Robin mask kind of thing. It's that comical, and he's like on the roof, and he sees Batman across the street, and it's like, Batman, you're supposed to be a ninja. Why are you letting this criminal see you? And then it turns out like there are parademons, and parademons smell fear, and so he's trying to scare the burglar to get parademons to show up, and then he's like fights the parademon, and the burglar's like the whole time he's just like, what is that? Is that an alien? Are they here because Superman's dead? Kind of thing. And then like he just like has all these jokes, and the Batman's like, yep, he smells fear, kind of thing. And then like it cuts to like the next scene of the movie, but it's like super weird, and it's like this really...
Batman lets him go.
Yeah, it makes no sense, and it was a bad scene, really bad scene.
What's funny about that scene is that it's like it's campy in a way that if that scene had been part of a Batman movie, had been part of like the Joel Schumacher Batman movies in the mid '90s, it would have been kind of cool.
It wouldn't have been out of place.
It feels like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Sort of this like this Gotham that doesn't. I mean, I guess Gotham never really exists in time, but Sam Raimi's Spider-Man feels very like very campy and like you know 30s, 50s sort of robbers and stuff, and just like man in super powered person in a cape and his underwear on the outside of his pants chasing down bank robbers and stuff, and like that's kind of fun. It's a completely different movie. It's totally incongruent to this movie. Yeah, it makes I kind of enjoyed it. And also, this is like one of the coolest versions of Gotham that I've seen. I really like the way Gotham looks in this scene, and just like in the both of these Justice Leagues.
See, I like the Gotham design too. What I don't like about Gotham in this is it's like San Francisco and Oakland, where they're literally just across the bay from each other, and it's just like, oh, so Batman never helped out Metropolis before? Like, that's a little weird.
I like that idea, but I don't think it's pulled off very well in the movie.
No.
But conceptually, I like it.
It could be cool, but it just it kind of weakens both Superman and Batman, in that like they never really crossed paths. I mean, granted, Superman wasn't around very long for him and Batman to cross paths, but it's like it's weird that like Gotham thinks of Batman as like Metropolis is like, oh, Batman's a myth, but then Gotham's like, oh yeah, Batman's totally a thing. It's like they're right across the street. Like if you shine a light like that, where Batman can see it from anywhere in the city, you would be able to see that in Metropolis and be like, oh, there they are shining that fucking light again. Like, it's weird that they're treated like it's almost like a different country, even though it's like across the bay and you can see it.
Yeah, so, Batman's been operating for 20 years in this movie.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
You think there'd be some crossover?
So then the next scene is there's like a montage of like everybody being sad. Lois Lane is sad. Ma Kent's sad. And there's a song that's like, everybody knows this movie sucks. So then we get like the introduction to Wonder Woman again, and it's just like, really, this is definitely expanded in this one versus the Justice League. But like, she picks up this dude and is like, tell me what your plan is. Where are you guys robbing? He's like, we're not robbing anything. And she goes out of her way to really explain what the lasso of truth is. Like, the lasso of truth, when wrapped around you, compels you to tell the truth. I'm going to ask you some questions and you're going to give me an honest answer, kind of thing. Like, it's super corny, but she finds out that there's not a robbery, that there's this like terrorist plot to blow up 4 city blocks. She goes and saves the day and throws the bomb in the sky, and it like she gets like 10 feet above the roof level and it blows up and it's just like a little fireball, and I'm thinking like that was supposed to blow up 4 city blocks and he just threw it up 10 feet above the roof and it didn't even damage the building.
Yeah, that was my thinking too.
Like that made no sense. And then she comes back down and fights the terrorists and she's like ching 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 ching, like moving super fast, blocking machine gun fire.
I think aerial detonations tend to be more devastating than ground detonations too, right?
I mean, I guess it depends on the type of explosion, because what makes explosions dangerous is more the shrapnel and the debris. So I guess if it's up there and there's nothing, like it doesn't damage any building, there's no metal or brick or wood or splinters going anywhere. But to say that that would have taken out 4 city blocks,
it would have to be much higher up in the air, which Zack Snyder's Justice League fixes.
Yep, I agree. So I did like that was one of my notes. So then they go to like Aquaman's little like place, like he's like the Batman of this like Nordic country, like this one Nordic little sea shanty kind of town. And he just shows up as Bruce Wayne and being like, hey, I'm Bruce Wayne. I'm putting together an army to fight aliens. Are you in? And they just keep saying, like, Bruce Wayne, you dress like a bat in front of, like, all these, like, civilians. And it's just like, what's the point of even having a secret identity? And this scene goes on, like, really long. Like, this is a very Joss Whedon heavy quip scene where it's really streamlined in the Zack Snyder version, where it's like, I hear you talk to fish and blah, 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 blah. And he like Aquaman says something along the lines of like, haven't you heard like the man who stands alone is the strongest? And then Batman like looks like straight down the barrel of the camera and gets like big goofy eyes. Like that's literally the opposite of an expression. Like it's just so bad. I don't know. Like I'm just going to speed through a lot of like the introductions to characters. And then we see Flash. He's going to prison to visit Billy Crudup, who's Dr. Manhattan, who worked with Zack Snyder before. He was actually in consideration for Batman during the Nolan era. Like he screen tested and everything. So that's why he was in this. And, you know, we get the very loosest backstory for Flash. We get a very loose backstory for Cyborg, where it's just his dad being like, you're not a monster. Like, I saved your life. And he's like, Dad, you made me a monster. You're the monster kind of thing. And then, like, that's it. And he just talks about how he keeps developing new powers. And then we start seeing a bunch of people getting kidnapped by parademons with no real explanation. And then we see Steppenwolf attack Themyscira with the Amazonians. And, like, this could have been a really cool scene. But it was bad. The CGI was really bad. And the physics made no sense. Like, there's points where they're, like, throwing whips around and grabbing the mother box. And it just is, like, bouncing around like a basketball all over the field and everything. There's no rhyme or reason to physics.
It's very light in Zack Snyder's too. I didn't really think about it until I watched Zack Snyder's, but there's a couple scenes in the new one where somebody just picks it up like it's nothing. I think maybe Cyborg picks it up, so maybe he's super strong.
Well, no, the dad
nothing.
picks it up too. Like a regular human man picks it up like it's just like a box full of kittens.
Yeah. Kittens are heavier.
Yeah, probably. But it's just like, there's just nothing to it. Like it's like acting when like they brought it up in American Sniper where like Bradley Cooper's like holding that baby, but it's a fake baby, and so like he's not holding it like there's any weight to it, or like you see it a lot in like bad productions where somebody has a cup of coffee and it's clearly empty. They're just like swinging their arm around like that's not how you would hold a cup of coffee.
Or like a prop gun or something.
Yeah, it's just like there's nothing to it. Like there's more to acting than just saying your lines. Like you got to make your other emotions believable, and that just wasn't there. But yeah, that scene was not good. Like there's like when they're fighting in like the little temples, okay, but when they're out on the field and you're seeing like thousands of horses and stuff, like it looked like a video game rendering.
Yeah, and I think anything with Steppenwolf in the first movie, any scene with Steppenwolf is worse because he's there. Like that is just a black hole of a character.
It's a shitty design, just a weird grit. Like they gave him like a human face, but it was completely CGI'd with his CGI armor. Like you could tell it was a CGI character.
There's no motivation. It's just like generic alien bad guy. His voice is obnoxious.
And then he says something like, "You guys will all love me," as he disappears after like getting the the mother box, and it's like that never comes back into play. Like he makes this big thing like, the whole world's gonna love me.
It's so clear in the I mean, not that like that scene or that line makes sense in Zack Snyder's, but it's so clear watching Justice League that there was chunks of story cut out around Steppenwolf for Joss Whedon's.
And there definitely was. And then there's like this other subplot that we get, and it pops up a couple times where because the parademons are kidnapping people who've been near the mother box. There's like in this news footage, like aliens kidnapped my wife or my husband, and there's like a wife screaming like, "Those motherfucking aliens! They took my wife!" And it's just like clearly a Joss Whedon joke cut in that doesn't add anything to the movie. And then like there's also all these cutaways to this like Russian family just like living close to this nuclear reactor where the climax of the movie is going to take place. And it's like they had to cut this movie down to 2 hours. And they cut so much of the Flash's backstory, so much of Cyborg's backstory, but we get a good 10 to 15 minutes of this like Russian family just doing Russian life in Russia. And I didn't get that.
It doesn't add anything. Like, we know the stakes are that the world might be devastated. We don't need to cut into this little family near the evil base or whatever.
Yeah. And so then we get like an exposition dump by Wonder Woman where she shows up to Batman's house and he's like, "Man, you just ruined my millions of dollars worth of stuff to get here. You could have just called." And we get basically the same battle that we just saw on Themyscira where Steppenwolf won, but we get the same battle where he loses because like the Green Lantern showed up and the Atlanteans showed up. And this one, the CGI is even worse. And it's just it's a mess. It could be cool if DC, like the DC, for DC fans, I'm sure it was cool because they saw the Green Lanterns in the background and you saw Zeus and you saw all the different gods. I don't think David Thewlis was in this one. I know he's in the Snyder cut version because he was Ares in Wonder Woman, but we see all these gods and it's just like, I don't think he's in this version. Then we get cut to like Lois Lane and she's like writing puff pieces, and my friend Jack is in this scene. I didn't know he was in the movie, but he's the Asian guy who's like, "Hey Lois, I took over your story. Can you give me all your leads?" And she's like, "No." And that's a completely different thing in the new one. Unfortunately, because Lois Lane doesn't work in the Snyder cut, like she's too depressed and grieving to go back to work. My friend Jack clearly wasn't in that version because she wasn't working.
Yeah, Jack killed it. He's the best part of that scene. But I do think it makes more sense when Lois is too devastated to be working.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Story-wise.
Barry Allen, we get his introduction. I hate that scene. I hate Ezra Miller in this movie. Despite
the new scene with Iris, right?
Well, no, I mean that's in Snyder cut, but I'm like in this, our introduction to him and Bruce Wayne is like Bruce Wayne's just in his house and he says, you say, he's like, "I'm Bruce Wayne," and he's like, "You say that." Like, it explains why there's a total stranger in my house sitting in the dark in my second favorite chair. Like, I don't dislike that line, but he's so awkward. And like, to me, the Flash, you either make him a normal guy trying to fit in, or you make him like a speed freak kind of thing where it's like, because he's operating on a different level, like I feel like he should be talking really fast and hard to comprehend, but he's like has all these like really awkward pauses and I hate it. Like his delivery is awful.
It feels like a very transparent pandering attempt to say, what if we had like an autistic superhero? And I think the idea of making the Flash like neurodivergent is interesting, and like he can't connect with people, quote unquote normally or whatever. I think that's interesting, but
I do too. But
the way Ezra does it feels very like forced and like quirky for the sake of quirky. He's like a manic pixie dream superhero. And the way that they just like slide into it in that scene, it feels like a switch is flipped, and all of a sudden it's like, by the way, Flash has ADHD. Isn't that great? Isn't that weird?
Yeah, and I think I agree with you. I think it's interesting. Like Marvel has done that, not in the movies, but in the comics. Like Quicksilver, there's a run where he's like seeing a therapist, and he's just like, "Have you ever like gone to a check stand at the grocery store and you're annoyed by how slow it's going?" Everybody is that annoying person at the check stand for me. I operate on a fundamentally different level where I just hate being around regular people. I can't connect with them because by the time they come up with their thought, I've already done blah, 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 blah. Like I'm like a supercomputer and this is dial up kind of thing. So I think it could have been interesting. It's just like they did it to be funny. Like they were trying to come up with their own version of Spider-Man, and it's, his comedic timing's not good. Like I like Ezra Miller in other movies like Perks of Being a Wallflower, even the Harry Potter movie. I don't think he's terrible, but like his comedic timing is not good. Like it's not enough to have funny dialogue. You have to have good timing, and he doesn't have it.
Yeah, I think he might just be a little off-putting in general because I kind of feel that way about his other movies too.
Yeah, I don't mind him in other stuff, but yeah, this one was painful. And then like he has this like weird thing, like Bruce Wayne fails. Like Cyborg is like not interested in joining them. Aquaman's not interested in joining him, but Barry Allen is like interested immediately. But he doesn't really know for sure what his powers are. Like, they talk about him a couple times, like, does he teleport? Is he really fast? We don't really know. So he throws a batarang at Barry Allen. He goes, I don't know what your powers are. Thwink. And it's just like, dude, what if he didn't have superhuman reflexes? Like, what if he was just a teleporter? Like, his reflexes wouldn't be fast enough to dodge that. Like, he could have just gorked the Flash, not knowing what his powers
Well, he's
are.
a master detective. He's got crazy instincts. He just knew.
So
a little reckless.
So there's this line that I hated, and I thought for sure this was a Joss Whedon line, but apparently it was in the Snyder cut. But they're walking to Bruce Wayne's car, and he's just like, they're on this tangent, like, what is brunch? Like, you wait in line for hours to eat food at lunchtime, but it's breakfast. Like a joke we've heard 1,000 times in other things. But he's like, I'm like a black hole of snacks. I'm a snack hole. And I was like, God damn it, Joss Whedon. But that was actually in the Zack Snyder cut. So I have to apologize for bashing Whedon on that joke. It was not his. Then this, like, from here the movie just kind of like goes, like, it just snap to scenes that are really disjointed. So now we're in in the Atlantis, and Aquaman just happens to show up right when Steppenwolf shows up and gets defeated, and so Aquaman gets this like weird look on his face, like, oh, I guess I should go help those other people. We see like Batman and everybody shows up to see Commissioner Gordon, and we get that awkward scene where they all disappear after explaining they're going to go to the sewers and fight the parademons, and everybody disappears, and Flash is like, oh, that's awkward. I'm sorry, Commissioner Gordon. And then we get this fight scene that makes no sense. So this is like one of, I'd say, two of the big action beats of the movie. So they're in like the city, like they're in these like sewers that are massive, like concert hall size rooms in these sewers.
It's not a sewer. It's like an unfinished underground something or other between the two cities. Like they're literally, It's like the BART tube.
Yeah, except it's like clearly like water stuff because of the way it comes up in steam or whatever. It's weird, but it's like this weird industrial facility underground that has like tubes that are like 20 to 50 feet in diameter, but then these giant rooms that are like skyscrapers under, like there's essentially like a skyscraper underground going up that they like have this big battle in. But there's this like weird side plot that the Flash is a pacifist and like doesn't fight. He's like, I occasionally push people, but I didn't sign up to fight demons. And Batman's like,
well, I don't think he's a pacifist. I think he's just like,
he says the word.
Not a
warrior. He says I'm something of a pacifist.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that in the Whedon version.
Yeah, and
did he say it in the Snyder one too?
No, he says no. That plot is completely removed. Like he's totally on board with fighting parademons in the second movie. Because in this one, he's like, I'm not a fighter.
I took it as him not being a pacifist, but just like not being trained for battle the way that
that
Wonder
would be
Woman
fair. But he does say like, I'm not really a fighter. And in press, I went and looked it up. Both him and Whedon said he is a pacifist of sorts.
Weird
and everything. So
it's funny that they both said that. I didn't even pick it up. Like,
yeah, and but so Batman's like, cool, don't fight, just save one person and then do it again.
So that line or that like little motivational speech is not in the Snyder cut, and I don't know if it would have fit since he's not a pacifist or whatever. But I actually really like that Batman speach to Barry.
I liked that too. It's just weird that it's not there, and I don't like the whole time, like at this point they know about parademons, they know all this, like why bring it up at that moment that he's like afraid to fight? Like I think they could have done it a different way. Like he should have said, I don't know what to do in this circumstance. And Batman gives that motivation, but like, don't bring up not being a fighter or anything. I think it's a good premise. I just don't think it was executed in the best way. I think Ben Affleck killed it in that. I think he delivered that speech perfectly.
Yeah.
And I do think that was a very Batman thing to say in a circumstance like that. So I liked part of it. I guess I just didn't like the Ezra Miller portion of it. I think just Ezra Miller killed me in this movie. So we get this like huge CGI mess where everyone's fighting parademons, and Batman brings this like spider tank, and the spider tank gets defeated immediately, and they accidentally blow a hole in the tunnel, and Aquaman comes and like stops the tunnel from killing them immediately with the water. And then they were just like, you know what, we should probably bring Superman back to life. And like this is the one thing I'd say I like better in this version than the Snyder cut, is there's a serious debate about is it okay to bring Superman back to life? Like Wonder Woman is like staunchly against it. She's like, this is weird. We don't know. Cyborg says a couple things like, we don't know anything about his DNA. We don't know if he's going to come back with his memories. It might be like Doomsday. And then Flash and Aquaman are kind of like, we don't really have an opinion on it. But Batman's like, no, this is what we got to do. and they agree to do it, but at least there's a conversation. In the subsequent movie, it's just like everyone's like, oh yeah, we should totally bring Superman back together. And the mother box told us to, because there's a projector on the mother box that tells us bring Superman back to life. They bring Superman back to life. We get this big fight. The fights between the two are pretty similar. I will bring up the differences when we get to Justice League, because most of the differences revolve around some additional tech that Batman has that's in the Snyder cut and not in this version. But essentially, Superman wakes up and whoops all kinds of ass. Like, he defeats the Justice League in like 2 seconds. And then he's about to kill Batman. He's like, do you bleed? And like Lois Lane shows up.
You won't
like,
let me live?
Yeah.
You
Lois
won't
Lane
let me
shows
die?
Up. Yeah. And then Lois Lane shows up because Batman called her and is like, hey, make sure we have Lois Lane like close by so she can like do the same poem that Hulk had from Black Widow. Like, this is clearly a Joss Whedon thing. Like, let's get the woman in to calm him down. And then it just goes. They like set up their plan. We're going to go to Russia. We're going to fight, Steppenwolf. And Superman just disappears and goes to his farm to talk to his mom for a little bit while like the heroes are going and fighting at Steppenwolf thing. And like that climax battle's awful. I don't think there's anything redeeming about it. It's just like Aquaman skydiving and fighting people. Cyborg picks him up a couple of times. You just see the Batmobile shooting at things. Like, there's nothing engaging or interesting in that battle. And then that weird red CGI sky.
Yeah. Until Superman shows up. And that's one of my favorite parts of the Joss Whedon version is the Superman at the end is like,
I agree.
Classic Superman.
So he shows up and like saves the day, and he gives this little speech like, I'm for like saving the world, and I'm for justice and peace and everything. And like he just lays out Steppenwolf, like defeats him almost instantly. And then they have to like stop the explosion. So him and the Flash go and save the day. Like, they go and the Flash goes and saves the Russian family by pushing their truck. And he's like, yeah, I'm such a good hero. And then you see Superman literally carrying an entire apartment building. I thought that was a little corny.
Why are the kids in the truck bed in the first place? Why aren't they in the cab with the parents?
I think it was a single cab, like one with like out of backseat. Like,
they
they
could
should have
fit
crammed
in
together.
there.
They could have.
Yeah.
They should have.
They're tiny little children. They can fit on the mom's lap.
And then they just like win. Like, they win the day. Like, everything's good. They win. Superman fixed everything. And really what ends up happening is Steppenwolf is afraid of Superman, so the parademons attack him. And then inexplicably a boom tube opens up. That's their teleportation field. It's like the Bifrost for Thor. They're called boom tubes in the DC. The boom tube opens and pulls Steppenwolf, who's getting like eaten by the parademons. And like that's the end of the movie. And then like you get
no
like the little
comment.
epilogue. Yeah.
This is no comment on DC Comics because I haven't really gotten super into them. But this movie and like the DC universe in general, and even the Snyder cut really makes it feel like it's just a less cool version of Marvel characters.
Yeah.
Like, Darkseid is our Thanos, boom tubes are our Bifrost, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I would rather just
Mother
watch Marvel 'cause
boxes
they do it
are
better.
Infinity Stones.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't understand how an audience watches that and isn't just like, well, we've seen this done in a much cooler way already.
Yeah.
So.
It's bad. And then you get like all this nonsense, like at the end, like there's this little epilogue where like Batman is like, hey, I bought the bank that bought your mom's farm. Like, why not just pay the bank for the thing? Like, why would you buy the entire bank? That makes no sense.
And also, why did you do it after you've done battle with the guy? Why didn't you do it a year ago when she
while he was dead? Like, why not help his mom out early? Like, come on. Yeah, I thought
she's got the same name as your mom.
Yeah, why'd you not help her out? And then Barry goes and visits his dad in the prison again. He's like, I got a real job, because there was like his dad made some comment early on that he has like 3 jobs, and like he needs to get like 1 job that's a real job versus 3 gig jobs and kind of thing. And then we get the 2 post-credit scenes. So you get one where the Flash and Superman race, which is fun. I actually like that. I think that was a fun little thing. It's a little lighthearted for the DC overall, but I think it's a fun little thing. I was cool with that. But then we get this awful one with Lex Luthor where like he gets broken out of prison, and then like Deathstroke shows up to his little yacht and he's like, we should have a league of our own. And like it cuts to black. And I like Deathstroke as a character, but I think Joe Manganiello as a casting is fucking great. But I hate what they did with his hair, like that straight up bleached blonde. Like his regular salt and pepper look would have been
gets even worse in the
character.
Snyder cut.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the movie.
I really could do without Jesse Eisenberg again, honestly. And I like Social Network is maybe one of my favorite movies. I like him in other stuff. But the Jesse Eisenberg Lex Luthor is just not interesting to me. Like, maybe he should have gotten knifed in prison or something, and he's
It's
horribly
bad.
scarred or whatever, and then they recast him.
You know what the original vision for DC Lex Luthor was supposed to be? He was supposed to be a kid who grew up on the streets and like worked his way up to becoming like a billionaire,
Way
and
more
like
interesting.
had like full on tattoo sleeves of like Gotham and Metropolis on each arm. He was gonna have like the skyline kind of thing.
Okay, that's stupid, but I like
Yeah.
the self-made man aspect.
Yeah, that could have been interesting, but yeah, that's they didn't.
What
They
is
ended
with
up
the
landing on a weird
DCEU
thing.
and shitty tattoos?
Dude, I don't fucking know. So that's pretty much this movie, just as a few kind of like things to top it off. Like, in addition to all the reshoots, like this went through 3 different composers. So originally it was Junkie XL, like Zack Snyder loves that guy,
He's great.
who replaced Hans Zimmer. Like Hans Zimmer was supposed to do this, but he decided he doesn't want to do superhero movies anymore, and he went to go do the Tomb Raider movie from 2018 instead of this. So then they brought Junkie XL, who completed his score, but when Joss Whedon took over, they got rid of him and brought in Danny Elfman, who
See,
just
the Hans Zimmer
recycled-
thing. Sorry, the Hans Zimmer thing is interesting to me because that's another aspect of like the Nolan influence at the very beginning of this project. And instead of releasing the Snyder cut, I'd rather we reshoot the whole thing with Christopher Nolan in charge. I
Yeah.
want to see the Nolan
Well,
cut.
I'm wondering if Hans Zimmer is actually like starting to distance himself from Nolan in general, because he also didn't do Tenet to do Dune, which it's 2 big movies in a row that like he would working with people he would normally work with that he decided not to. So I'm
Well, it might
curious if
have
there's
been-
something behind the scenes.
Was he asked to do Tenet and turn it down? I mean,
Yeah.
there's no way we can know, right?
Yeah, no, that's he's gone on. He has said that he elected to do Dune instead. He wanted to do Dune over Tenet, which I can't think of the guy who did the music for Dune, for Tenet at this point. But I think the score for Tenet was really interesting.
Tenet
it's
was
the same guy who does Mandalorian.
Ludwig, yeah.
Yeah,
Ludwig
I
Göransson.
thought the Tenet score was really fucking
He's not-
cool. It's weird.
He's also the dude that did like Community and Black Panther and
Yeah.
Childish Gambino's producer.
Yeah, no, he's fucking
Yeah.
rad. Like
He's great.
I think it's really cool that they did that. So I like Danny Elfman's score. You can always tell Danny Elfman.
Yeah.
This I don't like because obviously he was brought in super late in the game. All he did was kind of remix the classic. He did the Richard Donner version Superman theme. He just remixed that. He did the Tim Burton theme and just remixed it. Like, it's not.
I mean, I didn't get that sense. I know he weaved them in there, but I thought he just kind of did homages.
No, they're like actual parts of that song. Like they just kind of remixed.
No, I
it.
understand that. I'm saying I think he just touched on them. He like used the theme from Batman and Superman in a couple places, but I don't think that the Justice League theme is based on.
Well, not
either
the
of
just
those
well
themes.
the individual character scores are based off previous versions. I feel like I would have rather just had new orchestral themes or stick with the ones from the previous movie. I felt like it was just like a cheap trick to pull out our like nostalgia string, like heartstrings. To be like, you like this movie because it has this music that you like and you remember. Because like the Superman score is one of those scores that people know. Like you can just start humming it and people know what it is. Like, and that's a criticism that a lot of modern movies get. Like Marvel is constantly criticized for not having a memorable score. They have so many characters, but you can't really think of the score for any of them. Like, can you just hum the Captain America theme or the Iron Man
but
theme?
I know that was the thing with Marvel, but I think they've corrected that 5 years going now.
Yeah, I
Like
think.
the
Well, I, mean,
Avengers
I
themes,
think.
bum 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 bum.
I think
it now.
Avengers is good, but like the individual characters. But that was like after years of that critique. Like this, I feel is just like we're gonna manipulate you into liking this movie more because we've got this music that's reminiscent of movies that you like better. I felt it was
Yeah, I mean,
manipulative.
Well, movies are manipulative. I thought it was kind of a nice. I liked that they did that, and I was thinking about it this watch, and it worked on me. I still dig it. I think it's not like similar to the Batman and the robber scene at the beginning of this movie. I think they are trying to do like the campy, pulpy aspects of some of these characters, and also like Flash and Superman racing. But then, especially with Joss Whedon's version, they're trying to do it alongside this like gritty, like beyond Dark Knight darkness, gritty realism.
Yeah.
And like putting those two things together just doesn't work. Like you got to do one or the other.
So on the whole, this movie is very disjointed.
Yeah.
It's two tones clashing. They also went through and like there's stuff
And it
like
feels like it has like like holes punched out of it.
yeah, it really does. Like nothing, you don't get any real backstory for 3 of the 4. I mean, even at Wonder Woman at this point, we hadn't had the Wonder Woman movie out yet, so we really only had her little bits that we had in Batman v Superman. So it's like Batman had some great character development in Batman v Superman. Regardless of what you think about that movie, we understand this version of Batman. We understand Superman because we got a movie and a half of Superman between Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. But we got like 15, 20 minutes of Wonder Woman in that movie. And then this is our introduction to Aquaman, Cyborg, and Flash, and we know nothing about them.
Yeah.
It doesn't do any of those 3 characters justice.
Yeah, it's a testament to Marvel's style of world building where they do the solo movies first.
Perfect. All right, bud. We kind of talked the first one to death. I'm sure we're going to go back to it a little bit. But in the meantime, what have you been up to, bud?
What have I been up to? Well, sir, I'm glad you asked. I've been rewatching the Paranormal Activity series. Those are pretty cool. We skipped the what is it? The marked ones. But we
I haven't
watched
seen
the Ghost
any of those movies.
The first
Not
one is
one.
100% worth watching. The other ones are fun, but the first one is like genuinely worth checking out.
Okay.
Yeah, I watched Euro Trip, which is surprisingly fun. Holds up pretty well.
Scotty doesn't know.
That's right. Demolition Man, which is a perfect film.
Oh, that's like the second time you've watched that since you've mentioned it, since we've been doing this.
Yeah, I think I watched
It's
it
a good
last
movie.
year, huh? Oh, it's great.
I think you watched it a couple of months ago.
I don't know if it was that recent.
Whatever, it's a great movie.
Yeah, it's great. Be Cool, which does not hold up well, but has its moments. Extract. Really like Extract.
Extract. Which one's that one again?
It's with Jason Bateman. It's written, directed by
and
Mike
Mila
Judge.
Kunis.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, no, I have seen that one.
I like that movie a lot. Also Ben Affleck, which ties back to the Justice League. Search Party, not the show, the TJ Miller, Silicon Valley, Thomas Middleditch movie.
Okay. I don't know that one.
It's fine. Yeah, you don't need to. It's okay. I watched the Billie Eilish documentary, which
so did I.
Oh, dude. Okay, let's hold our comments. We should revisit that in an episode. I have opinions. The Nice Guys, which is also a perfect film.
I need to go back to that one.
Yeah,
I didn't like it the first time I watched it,
it's
and
great, man.
I haven't gone back.
I love it so much. I'm just gonna name a bunch. Deadpool 2, The Mummy,
Nice.
Greenland, which is another one we can talk about. I think you watched it, right?
No, I haven't seen it. I've heard it's good, but I haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah, you should watch that. We can talk about it. Sex Drive, I Love You Man, The
I watched
Conjuring.
that.
Which one? Sex Drive?
Sex Drive, yeah.
That's kind of fun, right?
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, it's all right.
It has Fall Out Boy in it.
It sure does. Seth Green's the best part of that movie.
Oh, for sure.
I rewatched The Conjuring for the first time since it came out, and I still don't like it, but it was a little bit better than I remembered.
Well, that's good.
Not a fan, though. And that's it. In Justice League.
Nice. So what's unfortunate is I spent a lot of time. So we're essentially 3 weeks out since we recorded last, since we waited until these movies came out. But so I've got a lot on my list too. But I finally got to reorganizing my office and getting it set up, and it was done and perfect. And then we reorganized downstairs, so my office became a storage place again. So it's not set up, but while I was setting it up, I was able to watch a bunch of stuff. So I watched Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home. Which was, they're great. I started watching The Young Rock. Like, it has like 4 episodes out. It's not bad.
That's enough with that
guy.
All right.
It's actually pretty endearing and really.
I've got rock fatigue.
He bookends each episode. Like, he's in it, but the people who play young Dwayne Johnson are really great. There's a 10-year-old version and then like a college version. They're both really good.
I just have rock fatigue. It's enough of that guy.
I get it. I watched The Replacements with Keanu Reeves.
Hell yeah.
Fun film. I watched Captain America, The Winter Soldier. So good. TMNT, the animated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie from like 2006.
Which one? Yeah. I remember having fun with that.
Yeah, it's fun.
Oh, wait,
good.
is it the animated
Chris
one
Evans
or
is in
the
it
Michael
too?
Bay one?
The animated one.
Yeah, that one's cool.
Yeah, the Michael Bay one, not so much. We watched a couple of the best picture kind of noms. So we watched Minari, which was really good. It's not a movie, and Nomadland. Like, I have the kind of the same critique for both of them. Like, both of them are essentially just like a chapter of someone's life, and so there's not like a beginning, middle, or end kind of thing. Like, not the classic, cinematic kind of story. So I'm not used to those kind of films. So I kind of felt like the end of the movie, it's something bad happens from a major life event, and there's no real closure. Like, you don't actually know what happened to them after this event. So I kind of felt wanting, but both fantastic. Frances McDormand in No Man's Land, incredible performance, and Stephen Yeun, who's now the first Asian American to be nominated for a Best Actor in any kind of award show. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then I started playing the Fantastic Four, Final Fantasy VII remake. I see FF in my notes and immediately go to Fantastic Four. But no, I've been playing the Final Fantasy VII remake, and I was a little disappointed because the game was fantastic, but I thought that the story was really slow and nothing was really happening. And I found out that this game is really only like 10% of the original game. It's like essentially the prologue.
I played the demo and it was really cool, but I was up to my neck in Fallout, so I was like, I don't need another RPG right now.
It's good, and like the story, it just don't expect much from the story, just because it is essentially with the prologue from the like the original game is like 40 hours or so.
Yeah.
And this game I've already put in about 38 hours. And I guess the entire game that I'm playing now, because I never played the original, is only about 4 hours worth of gameplay of the original game. It's like 10% of the gameplay.
So
they're really going to... Yeah, so they're really going to slow roll this game and basically make a bunch of games from Fantastic... Why do I keep saying Fantastic 7? Final Fantasy 7. They're going to be making games for like decades, just remaking that one game in chapters, which is insane.
Oh, wow.
But the mechanics are really good. It's a fun game.
I didn't realize that. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I had no idea until I started playing it. I was like, why is the story so slow? Why have I done nothing? And then I found out that's why.
All right, good.
But yeah, that's pretty much everything I watched, pretty sure. But let's get into the Snyder Cut, man. Superman
screaming to start out the movie is so fucking dumb.
Yeah, neither movie starts out strong.
No.
Like, neither. Yeah, this one opens. Like, so essentially the story is more or less the same. Like, the meat and bones, the skeleton is the same story.
The
only real difference is this one is more fleshed out. I'd say we probably get a good 30 minutes of Ezra Miller flashback story, and then we probably get a good 45 minutes to an hour of additional Cyborg footage.
Yeah,
I would say that's a bulk of where it comes from.
I gotta say, I do not enjoy Ray Fisher as Cyborg at all.
I don't think he's good. I think he's better in the Snyder version.
Yeah,
because clearly there wasn't that animosity, and I didn't realize. I knew they cut Iris West out of the original one, but then also seeing like how much more time Silas Stone, the guy, I can't think of the actor's name right now, but he's from Terminator 2 as well.
Hell yeah, he is.
He plays Cyborg's dad. He's in this movie significantly more. Like, he probably has himself probably 15 to 20 minutes more screen time in this one. Then there's essentially the third person who is the Atom in DC. He's like their version of Ant-Man who shrinks. He's the Asian scientist guy that we see pop up in a few different places. He's completely cut out of the Whedon movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they cut out basically every person of color out of the Whedon version.
Yeah, and it's crazy the amount of money that they must have spent shooting these things just to have Joss Whedon completely cut them out.
Yeah, and to be fair, like, not to defend Joss Whedon or his version of the movie, but he was told 2 hours is the limit to that movie. In seeing how much of this footage, apparently the only new scene, and we'll get to it, is like the epilogue at the end of the movie,
right.
The very last bit. There's a nightmare scenario.
But even to that point, like, Zack Snyder shot so much stuff that he knew couldn't have been in the movie.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The Zack Snyder Justice League 4 hours is unreleasable.
Yeah, and what's insane is, like, so there was a point where they talked about doing Justice, like, there was a point where they had, like, release dates for Justice League Part 1 and Justice League Part 2.
Yeah.
But they knew before they started shooting that it wasn't going to be the case, because they started shooting this movie a month after Batman v Superman came out. And that's when they went through and like, oh, fuck, people hate Batman v Superman. We need to really pivot on this.
Yeah.
So Snyder and his writer went and rewrote the story. They added humor to it. They changed what the whole premise of the movie was going to be. So it's weird that he did shoot this much. Like, I know they generally shoot more, but to shoot what really would have to be a 4-hour movie, like, I don't understand what the plan really was.
Well, I wonder how much of that, like you said, there was a good amount of reshoots because they needed to add a lot of humor or whatever, like course correcting, and then I wonder how much of it was also shooting knowing that it was going to be in a second film, even though it didn't.
But they knew before they started shooting that it wasn't going to be a second film. So
I don't know.
Like, that's what I thought. I looked up. It's like there was an interview that I read from Snyder and his writer. I think it's Chris
Terrio.
Yeah, Terrio. And he's like, yeah, we came in and like had a marathon rewrite the month before, and they told us it wasn't going to be 2 movies. So that's what I just don't understand. Like, it's unfathomable thinking that this was going to get put onto film. And also, like, I'm just going to say this at the front. Anybody who thinks that this Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, is what his original vision was, I call just BS on them. There's no way that with having 4 years of hindsight, that you don't change some things. Obviously, he shot a whole new Nightmare footage with Jared Leto as the Joker.
Yeah.
Like, to say that this was his original vision, I just can't see that being true.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't what would have come out. Just because 4 years out of hindsight, and also, like we said, there's no way that Warner Brothers releases a 4-hour cut of this movie. So it just
you'd only be able to play it twice per stadium theater kind of thing. Like, there's just no way you can make a movie like this profitable if you released it in theaters. Yeah. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
So with that up front, like, I do have to give Joss Whedon a little bit of credit that he took all of this footage and got most of the story that they were trying to get. Like, obviously they skimped on character development.
I mean, listen, I don't give him any credit whatsoever. The movie's garbage.
Oh, it is. But I'm just saying, like,
I feel for him that he was given an impossible task.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that he succeeded in any way, shape, or form.
No, he didn't. I'm just going to say, like, I think, like you just said, it was an unwinnable, unachievable. It was like the Kobayashi Maru. Like, it's like, you have to learn how to take defeat as a captain, as a director.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right.
Go
beginning sucks on both movies.
Yeah. How do you want to do this? Do you want to kind of go I feel like it's going to take forever if we try to go through.
No, so this one I kind of want to just hit the differences, and then there might be a couple scenes that we go into. It's like, I want to talk a little bit more detail on this one, and obviously we're going to cut all this out. Like, when Superman comes back to life, I want to spend a decent chunk on that part just because it's drastically different.
Okay.
So you already brought up the beginning of this movie. It just is a rehash of Superman dying in the previous movie. Just a bad opening for both movies. And then it kind of immediately goes to that terrorist movie thing, like that terrorist bombing that was supposed to be 4 city blocks.
Yeah.
It's a little bit longer. It's less cheesy. Like, when she's she still explains what the lasso of truth is, but it's not as like lame and like comical.
Yeah, it's more of a Zack Snyder scene.
Yeah, the fight goes pretty much the same. But one of we brought it up. One of the things that we hated was it was 4 city blocks, but the bomb like only went like 5 feet above the roof and didn't do any damage. In this, she like Super Saiyan jumps through the roof and jumps hundreds of feet in the air above the roof, and then throws the bomb. So it's like, okay, that makes a lot more sense. So I feel like Snyder understands action better and explosions. So I kind of like that.
This scene also begins with her doing her like crazy fast thing and blocking a bunch of the bullets with her gauntlets.
Versus it being at the end.
Yeah, right off the bat. And then that she does it again at the end in this version. But I like the way that this one kicked off. I thought that was much more interesting.
It was more frenetic.
Yeah. I said kinetic. Like you said frenetic at the same time. That's funny.
Yeah. But no, it's definitely an improvement.
My gripe with that scene is that in the Joss Whedon version, I have gripes with both of them, actually. In the Joss Whedon version, she like does that. She blocks all the bullets from the guy, and the guy goes, "I don't believe it." And she goes, and he says, "What are you?" And she says, "I'm a believer." And then
that's right.
And then she sort of just like does her gauntlet X thing, and then we cut to the next scene. And I think
I hated that.
Yeah, and I think that "I believe it" is a dumb, or "believe it" is a dumb, cool person line from her. The Zack Snyder version, though, I don't remember it word for word. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
What did she say?
So she does the blast. This time it blows the windows out.
No,
bad guy's
like. Before that, though, he's like, "I don't believe it." And she's like, "Believe it." Like, "Fuck you." That's what it is.
Yeah.
Just like, kind of interesting because I think Wonder Woman is a little bit more of a wild card at the beginning of this. She's not like with the team right off the bat, so it makes a little bit more sense for her character. But she says that, and then she like does the X and blows the side of the building out, and we get to see the aftermath of that. Like from the outside, we see this explosion. There's no way that guy survived. I think his hat floats down afterwards too.
Yeah,
and then
she goes up
and
and
this like terrible
gives the kids a noogie.
Yeah, terrible like change of tone. She walks over to these school children who have just seen a man executed by Wonder Woman. And she like rubs a kid on the head and she's like, you can be just like me when you grow up if you want to. And that fucking sucked, man. That's like, I think that's my ultimate, that's my overall issue with Zack Snyder. He just has a fundamental different take on the way those like sincere scenes play out than I do. And then I think most audiences do.
I agree. So this one, like, we get
those kids are scarred for life, to be clear.
Oh, they should be. They just saw a man vaporize. Even if they didn't see a man killed, they were still held hostage and shot at. It just happened to be a superhuman got in the way and blocked the bullets. So,
but Wonder Woman could have like run over there and disarmed him and wrapped him up with the lasso of truth and waited for the cops or something. She just executed him.
Or just ran. So this is. I'm just gonna say. I was gonna bring this up like in the sewer fight later on because it's like especially egregious there. What I don't get in this movie is Wonder Woman moves like to be blocking bullets the way that she's doing. And when she's like in this one, the action scene is much faster where she's like zipping between bad guy to bad guy. Like she's traveling across the room in the blink of an eye.
She's as fast as the Flash.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not. I mean, not in this version, but she's moving probably around the speed of sound, if not a little faster.
I think like for all intents and purposes, she in a fight, she's as fast as the Flash. And then Barry Allen can also do the thing where he travels through time, but like we're talking about degrees.
So why did she have to do the X thing versus she could have just ran over there, bashed him in the head, and knocked him out?
I'm saying,
her speed is really inconsistent. Even Superman's speed, like the way he like when he fights in both movies, when he fights Steppenwolf, he's very like he'll like zoom up and fly really fast to him, but then he stops and then like punches them at like human speed. Yeah. Like, it doesn't really make sense to me. And, like, none of it really makes sense because, like, Steppenwolf, when he's, like, battling, like, Aquaman, who's not super fast, he's going, normal speed. But then he gets, like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, no speed or strength is consistent in this movie. But, in either version. But,
well, this is a problem with having gods as superheroes. Like, there's nothing they can't do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. So, we get the little Steppenwolf attacking Themyscira a little earlier in this one. It's much more brutal. It's pretty much the same thing, the weird wonky physics, but you see, blood and gore from, Amazonians getting stabbed and whatnot. But this design, it's just as bad as the original design. I hate it with, like, the clinking armor and, like, his weird horns. And
I mean, yeah, I don't like I don't like Steppenwolf's design either. It was, I guess I got used to it, and I liked that they sort of did an iridescent sheen to his metal. I thought that was a nice touch, but yeah, overall
I hated how it was like constantly silly. Clicking and moving around. I was just like, what's the point of that? Like, what purpose does that serve?
Well, it looks like the rest of the movie where it's just like CGI vomit.
Yeah, it's just extra money that they wasted on that, I would say. But yeah, the fight was just a little bit more brutal. In this version, in the previous version, you think that the Amazons win because they seal off the temple, but then he just like bursts through the wall like it's nothing. Yeah. In this version, like, the temple is sealed and then falls into the ocean.
I like that.
And like they're watching it for a good 2 or 3 minutes and then he jumps out. So it was, a little bit more tension in it. I thought that was a more effective scene. The CGI, the slow motion, I'm just going to say it at the front.
There's so much.
We're not the only ones saying that. They could have easily cut out an hour of this movie if it wasn't for all the slow motion. And I don't think I'm exaggerating.
No, it's so much and it's so unnecessary.
Like there are times like the football scenes, where it just like it's regular speed for 3 seconds and then it's slow motion for 15 seconds and regular speed for 3 seconds. It was just like,
and who cares? He's fast,
slow, fast, slow.
By the way, the climax of that football scene is that he like runs it in for a touchdown. He like dives and just barely gets the ball into the corner. If you look at it, he misses. That's not a touchdown.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding. No, I want to get some like little league or Pop Warner referees on there and see what they have to say, because I think the VAR will show that that's not a fucking touchdown.
Yeah, I think you're right. I I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't really pay attention to that.
Yeah. Throughout that entire Themyscira scene, also, I'm just watching these Amazons who, speaking of inconsistent strength, like they can take a punch from Steppenwolf, but she gets crushed by a horse. Like, is the horse made of fucking titanium or some shit? And then also, they're just shooting bows and arrows at him. Like, it's clearly not working. Why are we still doing it?
It doesn't make any sense. Like, and it's weird because like they fought him before, like 5,000. Like the Queen had personally fought him 5,000 years prior.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Is that not a fucking interaction that makes you think maybe we should try out guns?
Or just be prepared, like,
lasers?
That it took everybody, anything. I don't know, man.
Learn how to wield lightning like Zeus. You've had 5,000 years.
Yeah, it made no sense. So at this point, we move into part 2. We didn't really talk about this, but this movie is broken up into 6 chunks. It's actually more like 8 chunks because there's a prologue, and then it's part 1. This end is part 1 with the battle, and now part 2 is they're in Russia, and for whatever reason, like Russia is where they have to have the mother box all come. There's no real explanation that I understood as to why they were there.
They had like a throwaway line about Steppenwolf wanting to be in an area where there's like no internet, where it's harder to find.
Okay.
That might have actually been in the Joss Whedon version, but that stuck out to me. It's just like a super remote area.
So we'd already got the Aquaman intro. We kind of just bypassed it because it's pretty much the same as the Whedon version with the exception of a few jokes removed.
All I have to say about it is that they sing for literally 4 minutes when dude goes for a swim. Like they're singing a beautiful funeral hymn, and he just like jumps in the water with his shirt off, and water flies away.
So this one we get like the exposition dump, or we get Willem Dafoe to basically explaining like, hey, Orin who's the bad guy in the Aquaman movie, isn't going to give any more guards to protect the mother box, and it's kind of just I don't think that scene really helped any. I don't think that really needed to be in this, other than they felt bad for having Willem Dafoe come in and not actually putting it in the movie, maybe. No. But then we get the same exposition dump that we got from Wonder Woman in the last movie, where they talked about when Steppenwolf came and the first time. This time it's Darkseid, but he gets kind of taken out like a bitch pretty quick. Like everyone's working and he gets like an axe to his chest and then he like runs away. Like I didn't get a sense that Darkseid was any more powerful than Steppenwolf. I didn't think this was a good intro to Darkseid.
Yeah, I'm also not clear on, like, since the Earth defeat, which apparently is his only defeat, he conquered another 100,000 worlds, right?
I think total 100,000 worlds, and he's like just sore that he didn't get this one, and that's why he's coming back.
But he's conquered worlds since Earth, right?
I'm sure he's conquered some since Earth, yeah.
But it's like he's not using the mother boxes, so how is he terraforming him?
I don't know. Like, and that's the issue. They don't really give a good explanation to the mother boxes. Like, are there only 3, or are there like 3 per world? Like, there's not a good explanation because, the whole point of the mother boxes is they terraform. So I think I don't know. Like, were they using the same? Maybe 5,000 years isn't a very long time for them, and so they have been waiting to go back and get the mother boxes. But it's the big twist in this version. I guess maybe we should talk about the whole thing overall and then do the differences. Is the big differences in this one is they explicitly say, like, the mother box does a projection of Superman at a point in this movie, and it basically tells the heroes they hadn't been here because of the Kryptonians. Like, they were really afraid of Superman, but Superman hadn't been here this entire time. So, like, why was he afraid? Like, maybe
the projection you're talking about? I thought that was Cyborg.
No, it was the mother box. They actually have a line like, the mother box just told us, like, he's afraid. They're afraid of Clark. The mother box says we should bring him back. And that's the big difference in this movie. Like, the first movie, a couple of the members were like not on board for bringing Superman back from the dead. In this one, they're pretty much unanimous about it. Like, right off the bat, like, they have this whole thing. They're like, we get a little origin. It's like,
I think
the mother
Aquaman
box
is pretty opposed to it.
He is, but he like doesn't really voice. He's just like, it's weird, but then like doesn't really fight it. Like, once the mother box does the projection, they're all like, oh yeah, we should definitely do this. And like they say, like, do this weird analogy where they figure it out, where it's like, you know, anybody can burn a house down and turn a house into ash with a match, But what the mother box does is it takes the ash and turns it back into a house. And they're like, oh shit, we can bring Superman back. You son of a bitch, I'm in. Yeah. And so like the whole premise of this is that Darkseid didn't come earlier because he was afraid of Superman. But why? This 5,000 year gap before Superman made his presence known. Like, I don't understand that.
I feel like they didn't. Well, this is another issue that I had with it, but to answer your question as the movie would, I don't think that they knew that the mother boxes were on Earth.
But they would have had to because they did know they were on Earth. No, because they brought them.
This is a no. I mean, you're right. They should know that they're there, but I'm telling you, they forgot where Earth was, and that was my problem with the movie. They talk about
that's what it was? They forgot where Earth was?
Yeah, literally, they forgot out of hundreds of thousands of worlds, one defeated them, and they forgot its location.
Got it.
It says there's a line that's something like it disappeared into the ocean.
They say at some point the box, because Silas opened the box, and they knew that he was there. Yeah, they knew where the boxes were, but they didn't become because of Superman. That's right.
Right. So how fucking stupid is it that they lost a planet? I know there's a bunch of them, but like it seems like that should be the one to remember.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, Steppenwolf doesn't realize that that's the planet with the anti-life equation. He doesn't realize that that's the one that defeated them, even though he's been there collecting the mother boxes.
Yeah, it's dumb. It's the plot hangs by a thread. It really does. It's very thin.
Yeah.
So we get the big exposition dump. Like, this is most of part 2 is just the exposition dump, except it's Darkseid. And I don't think it's an effective introduction to him because, like, Darkseid's supposed to be like DC's Thanos. Even Darkseid came before Thanos. But in the cinematic world, obviously, Thanos was a big deal. We were building towards this. This is something you should have built towards. But having him get almost decapitated on his first screen appearance, like, I thought really kneecapped the character.
Yeah, agreed.
Then we get the Flash origin. We get like a half an hour of Flash. And I don't know if we talked about Ezra Miller a lot in the previous version. I don't think he's much better in this version. But I really just don't like the Flash effect. It's really just him standing in front of a green screen while everything's still. Like, I don't find it interesting.
He looks like he's roller skating, right?
Yeah.
Ice skating.
Yeah, it does. Like, I think he was on a treadmill, and that's how they made this work. He was like on a treadmill in front of like green screens. But like, he has this like big scene where he like kind of smiles at a pretty girl, and then she gets in a car accident, and he runs out and he like catches her in midair and grabs a hot dog. And you know, that's one of the humor scenes. He grabs a hot dog because he's trying to get a job as a dog walker and needs to prove that dogs like him.
It just feels so derivative of X-Men Days of Future Past. Like,
yeah, it does.
Quicksilver. And I don't know how you do that better. But this
I don't know how you do it either. Like, even Marvel couldn't really do it with their version of Quicksilver. So
it's almost like if they had a solo movie before this to really build up the character and have us give a shit about him at all, and also to like test out the visual effects of him running and stuff, then it would have been a little bit more resonant in Justice League.
I agree. And I think like the simplest way to put this is they essentially decided we're not going to give Aquaman, Cyborg, Wonder Woman, or Flash origin stories. What we're going to do is give them each the first part of an origin story movie. Because I'd say each character got between 30 and 45 minutes of backstory, Aquaman, Flash, and Cyborg. And essentially, it's like, okay, this is their origin story. They each get their own origin movie, but the climax and the battles are the same for all of them. It's almost like having 3 origins that have the same climax. Like, it's really weird. Yeah. It feels cheap, and it feels like we're cheated out of this, and we really were cheated.
And I just don't care. I don't care about any of these characters because I have nothing to. There's not enough character for me to dig my teeth into. I don't know who these people are.
Yeah, so then Cyborg, we get the same thing, about 30 minutes straight of him, and it's like he's like the high school quarterback or college quarterback not quarterback, he's like a running back.
I think he was a quarterback, actually. His Letterman jacket says QB.
Oh, did it? But he was like the star, and then he's also a brilliant hacker, and he's like hacking people's grades to give them better grades because like the person's family died. And then he gets in a car accident that we don't really see, and then his dad, who works at Star's lab, decides to build him a robot body. And that's like his whole origin. And I think it does a lot for the character. I think Cyborg gets a lot more out of this than anybody else does. But I agree with your assessment on Fisher though. He's not good.
But yeah, and it's the same kind of shit where it's 30 minutes in this movie, but I feel like you need a solo movie to really bond with any of these characters. So it still doesn't feel like enough. And then I think Ray Fisher is just like kind of flat, not very interesting. And he also suffers from the same problem as Wonder Woman and Flash and Superman, where they're just like, they're so powerful. Like there's like a 5 or 7 minute scene where he's sort of walking in the digital ether, understanding his powers, and his dad is doing like a voiceover explaining what he's capable of. And he's like, you'll be able to look at the stock markets and understand it as if it was, algebra to a 13-year-old or something. And you can do this and that. And it's just like, okay, so he's another all powerful being. It's just a little bit more technology focused, but he can do anything.
It could have been interesting if you made him like a Frankenstein's monster kind of thing, like this conflicted thing where because he is so powerful, almost like a Dr. Manhattan with a little bit more humanity, and have this like, I'm so powerful, I'm losing my touch with humanity. Like you could find something interesting in that, and they just didn't.
And Dr. Manhattan is interesting because he's all powerful and all knowing, but he's almost a nihilist. He sees himself as removed from the human race and from time. So he doesn't have a motivation to do anything. And that's fascinating. It's ironic.
Yeah, I agree.
And Cyborg doesn't have that. I think they tried to make up for it by making him sort of angsty because of his mom dying, and he blames his dad, but who cares?
Yeah. We get the scene with Batman in Flash's apartment is identical. The only difference is instead of having like flashing anime, no K-pop anime girls, it's a skull.
Rick and Morty is still there though.
What was that?
Rick and Morty is still there.
Yeah, but it's pretty much the same scene. Some of the other big things that we get in the middle of this is there's a lot more. It's weird. We don't get to know Diana Prince as Wonder Woman or anything. Like what we see is her like weird. There are a few moments in this, and they kind of have it in Batman v Superman, but there's like these weird awkward moments between her and Bruce where they touch hands and they're kind of embarrassed.
Yeah.
And then she's like bonding with Alfred, and he's like teaching her how to make tea and everything. Like I didn't really understand that.
Isn't there a joke about how Bruce Wayne doesn't have a date or something?
Yeah, there was.
It was weird, and I feel like she had a couple mildly sexually charged scenes with Aquaman or something too.
With like all of them, like Aquaman in this version straight up like ogles her, and then like they all talk about her at one point where they're like the Flash is like, do you think she'd ever be interested in a younger man? And Cyborg's like, she's 5,000 years old. Like everyone's younger than her. Like what's weird is like in this version they like through dialogue kind of like objectify her, but in Joss Whedon's version like they have Flash like fall on her and like land on her chest. Like it's funny. Like it's a little odd like how they really sexualized. But yeah, it's like that was weird. And then like there's this like subplot where Batman's trying to build a plane and he can't figure out why it doesn't work. And like Cyborg has like a line
Bruce Wayne,
like,
the fucking jet tinkerer.
Yeah, but like it turns out I guess like all machines are sentient because it can talk to Cyborg, and it's like it wants to fly. It has a software issue kind of thing. It's like I can understand him being able to see that, but like talking about this plane like as if it has wants, needs, or desires was a little weird.
Yeah, the thing that didn't bother me quite as much as he was like, oh, I need some time to fix it. No, you don't. Why would you need time to fix it? You can see all the problems immediately and work at this,
like he was able to hack
the speed of light.
An ATM is like is nothing. Like if it's just software, like he created a fake contest for the bank to give that woman the money. Like I don't see how he couldn't rewrite software on the fly.
Literally later in this movie, he just fucking puts his robot dicks into the Nightcrawler and steals control from Alfred and walks it up the side of a thing instantly. So why can't you, put your fucking USB drive into the plane and make it work?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So,
and that's just another example of these like inconsistent powers. Like they can do anything except when it's inconvenient for the story. And
right.
Then,
well,
for some reason they can't do it.
My speed thing, like before this actually happened, we skipped, but like the fight in under Gotham Harbor pretty much the same, but they got rid of that subplot where they're like, the Flash doesn't want to fight people, and like he immediately just like punches a parademon and it goes flying through a wall. But they rescue like everybody. Like the only thing they added was showing that all the people got rescued. But other than that, it's pretty much the same. Except Aquaman comes in riding the water from that harbor versus like just appearing from nowhere and stopping the water. One of the things I didn't get...
I think the score is pretty significantly different in that scene too. Like there's a different feel. There's a different feel to everything, and I think it worked a little bit better. It felt a little bit more
generally
dire.
The score is better. Like in the original version, when with Joss Whedon, when Aquaman's like jumping into the giant wave off the rock, it's White
Icky
Stripes,
Thump.
Icky Thump, and it just makes it more like I'm this badass like rock and roll dude who like doesn't give a shit about anything. But in the version, the score that was in this version, it was almost like he's this conflicted guy.
Yeah,
it completely changed the scene. Like some of these scenes without anything different is just it. The music completely changes it.
Well, you know, it's funny too. Like now we have Zack Snyder's version of this, and in between the two versions, we've had 2 Wonder Woman movies and the Aquaman movie, and those characters are more interesting because of the backstory in those ancillary movies. So it's almost like if they had done the solo movies first, we would have been able to enjoy Justice League more.
And they could have cut out the little bit of origin stuff they had and put more time into developing this actual story.
Yeah,
no,
I can't believe I have to explain this to Warner Brothers.
Yeah, now granted, I hated the Aquaman movie, and we both hated the second Wonder Woman movie. The first Wonder Woman movie was good.
I liked Wonder Woman 84 more than Aquaman. I hated Aquaman.
Oh, I Katrina walked out of the theater for Aquaman for like an hour and a half and just checked emails in the lobby of the theater.
It's a better use of her time.
No, Aquaman was terrible. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
That goes back to my complaint with James Wan and The Conjuring too. Like I think James Wan is super overrated.
Yeah, no, I agree. But yeah, those are kind of the major differences in this part of the movie. The other subplot we get is Batman's building like gauntlets that can absorb alien lasers, and the only thing that it really comes into play. He blocks a few like parademon blasts, but it makes it like Superman was going to kill Batman when they resurrect him in this version, and like he had the laser gauntlets that protected him for a little bit.
Yeah, that felt so transparent to me that they only wanted it for those 2 scenes.
Yeah, what I did appreciate about that scene, though, once he's resurrected, they did a couple different things that really set up the finale in a way that I liked. So in both versions, they have to put Superman's body in like the weird placenta goo from inside his spaceship, because for whatever reason, Kryptonian spaceships have like goo pools for doing weird experiments.
Amniotic chambers.
Yeah.
Well, I think that kind of makes sense because they grow their own.
They do grow their own
population.
people. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that.
So they both movies have this thing where the Flash has to like shoot lightning at the mother box right when it hits the goo. In the first movie, he just times it perfectly and shoots the goo. In this version, he actually times it off. Like the thing goes underwater, but he runs fast enough where he goes back in time slightly and touches it as it comes out of the water.
I simultaneously liked that he didn't time it perfectly because that feels ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I also didn't like that. I also did not like that it feels kind of random that he goes back in time. You know, did you get that feeling?
Well, see, for me, like I know, like the Flash can do that. That's a huge
I know about
part,
I know
but
about
for
Flashpoint
an average
too.
fan, it would be a little weird.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know about all that too. Like, it wasn't a surprise to me that he could do that. It just felt out of place. Like, oh, he's like going back in time all of a sudden.
You see, I think for the plot at the end of the movie, because the whole movie hinges on him going back in time, I think it makes sense to show. Like, I think it gives credence to it later, because like if he just did that at the very end of the movie without having this little smaller version of it, I don't think
that he needed to go back in time at the end of the movie either.
Yeah, they didn't need to write that in, but that's the finale they wanted. They did the finale and worked backwards.
Yeah, they just wanted it in there because it's cool that the Flash can go back in time. But
yeah, but I think
it's going to tie into his solo movie.
Yeah, exactly, because that's what his the Flash paradox or whatever it's called, Flashpoint, is supposed to be about. So, but I did appreciate if that's the ending they're going to do, that they at least kind of stuck to it.
I mean, that feels like the Gauntlets to me. It's just like, oh, we want this moment that doesn't really have anything to do, that is, interchangeable in the story. It doesn't have to happen, but it's going to look cool, and we want to make sure that we set it up so it's not totally random. So we'll do one other thing earlier, but then neither one of them seem relevant or necessary.
Yeah. So the end, we're now at the end of the movie. Superman's back. He does the same thing. He
Oh,
flies off to go say hi to his mom.
hold on, just so I'm not totally shitting on everything. I know you like the Whedon version of Superman's resurrection better, but I actually like this one better. I felt like it was being treated with some like reverence for Superman, which we've talked about. The movie, I don't think that the universe sets that up properly, or deserves that moment. But I like that they at least attempted to
I like both.
give it some weight.
I like that, like because that was the whole thing with like the aliens across the universe fear coming to Earth because of Superman. So I like that aspect of it. I just don't like. I think there should have been. I liked that there was more of a debate in the other version, but I think the actual resurrection itself was better. Like him not timing it perfectly, and
But in this version, isn't Aquaman literally saying like we shouldn't be doing this up to the moment he comes back? And even
no,
after?
he says it like once. So there's two scenes. So like they talk about it, and then it goes to like Steppenwolf talking to like the little projections, and then it goes back to they see the projection. They're all on board. Like
That was a super
like,
weird editing thing too, by the way. I didn't like
yeah, it was disjointed. Like it should have just been one scene. But like Aquaman voices it initially, the concern. And then, but it's only like, hey, man, this is a little weird. And then they start, like you mentioned, they talk up the reverence of Superman. Like, we need him. He's the protector. And everyone's like, all right, I'm fucking sold. Let's fucking do this.
I mean, I think that entire scene where they're walking over to the amniotic chamber, the music and the way he does use slow motion there, all of that combines to give it a lot more weight than the Joss Whedon version.
I think the actual resurrection scene was good in this version.
I'm going to say this one more time, and then we should both go back and kind of look at it. But I'm pretty sure Aquaman says something after the whole fight where he still thinks that it was a bad idea. I know he even has a look when he's like stuck on the stairs with Flash. He kind of looks over at Flash, and Flash is like, okay, I know, like this is a bad idea. Or something.
That was in the first version. So in the first one, they have that look, and the Flash even says like, "Pet Cemetery."
No, dude. I'm talking about in the new
we'll
version.
have to go back. I'll go back and look at it because I thought they were pretty much on board. Well, they start to doubt the plan, so they do have doubts. Oh, go ahead.
In the new version, Superman knocks Aquaman and Flash like back into the stairs leading up to the monument, and they're both like they crack the concrete, and they're both stuck in the concrete in the stairs. And there's a moment there where Flash is like, "Oh yeah, you're right, I fucked up." And Aquaman gives him a look. That's what
they
I'm talking
both.
About.
So what I meant that they were all on board was like they were all on board doing the resurrection. Like there wasn't much of a conversation, like fighting it like there was in the last one, because they're all on board. And then there's that moment of doubt where Cyborg is like interacting with the Kryptonian spaceship, and the Kryptonian spaceship's like, "Hey guys, are you sure you want to do this? Like, are you sure?
This is irreversible."
He has like a little nightmare flash. Like he sees Doomsday, he sees Wonder Woman dead, he sees Aquaman dead. And he sees like Superman flying around in the black costume. I don't know if I want to bring up so should we bring up the end really quick? Because I feel like the end scene, the last part we saw, should have been here instead of the end.
I would wait for the end of the podcast.
So they bring him back. He goes and does the same thing, and then they all go to Russia, and it's mostly the same finale. Except like you're seeing parademons like impaled on spikes, and Wonder Woman's cutting them in half and stuff like that. It's just more brutal. And then Superman shows up and makes like short work of Steppenwolf. The only real difference is they succeed in uniting the mother boxes, and so Flash has to go back in time to fix it. But as soon as he does that, like Superman just punches Steppenwolf, Aquaman impales him, and then Wonder Woman cuts off his head, and then they throw it back in the portal. And then Darkseid's like, nope, and then closes the portal.
Yeah, man, this is another scene that felt unnecessarily brutal.
Yeah,
like I guess if you're gonna kill anybody, that's the guy to kill. But it still felt very executy and not very justice.
Why did his eyes change color at the end of the movie?
Didn't he like get more power or something?
I don't know. Like out of nowhere, his eyes just turned blue, and they're like robot, like LED blue. And then, like, the others, like, Superman, like, lasers the shit off of the armor, like, burns the armor off of Steppenwolf, and, like, accidentally burns off, like, half his horn. Like, he cuts off one horn with his laser. Like, dope. It's really fucking brutal.
Yeah, it is really brutal. It just doesn't... I know that, I understand that they didn't want to do the Superman that Joss did, and like I said, I really liked seeing sort of the classic Superman. I think that was the the best version of Superman that we've seen. The end of
I
Joss's
agree.
movie.
I
I also
do agree.
But I also get that that's maybe a little Boy Scouty. It's definitely not the way Zack wanted to do it. But this Superman is just like, I guess it's Zack's Superman, but it's so fucking brutal and just doesn't feel like the character to me.
No, it doesn't.
Like he was beating the shit out of Steppenwolf.
Yeah, he really was.
And that he could have ended it whenever he wanted. Like he was doing it because he enjoyed it.
Yeah, like he does like the little flourish where he like punches him into the wall. Instead of just flying right back to him where he's on the wall, he does this like weird loop-de-loop thing and goes up into the sky and then comes back down and punches him. Like, you don't need to build that momentum. You're Superman.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you can laser off his horn, you can incapacitate him.
So, yeah, and so basically we get to the end of the movie at this point. And we didn't talk about Martian Manhunter, but we'll talk about his two scenes in just a second. But essentially we get like Lord of the Rings. We get an ending for each one that appears to be a happy ending for everyone. Like Aquaman goes to visit. We don't actually see him, but he goes to visit his Boba Fett dad. We find out that his dad's Boba Fett in his solo movie. Flash gets his job and goes and tells his dad, and his dad's super excited. And then this part I thought was dumb. Like, is Cyborg a mother box now? Because he looks at a tape recorder and then like it's shattered and he puts it back together, and it's not like a voice recorder, a digital one. It is an actual tape with magnetic cassette tape. And he like puts it back together and listens to his dad. And then his dad gives this heartwarming speech about hope that just ties in perfectly with everybody's story.
I don't think he's a mother box. I don't think there's a hint to that, except I think what it is just him having inconsistent, ridiculous powers.
Yeah. It just didn't make sense to me. I was like, because they mentioned the mother box can basically recreate anything. So I was like, does he just have that mother box power? I don't know.
Right. Well, he was created from a mother box the same way Wanda was created from an Infinity Stone. So
yeah, that makes sense. So we get all these happy endings, and then Batman, we get we get Lex Luthor on his boat the same. He gets out of prison, and Deathstroke comes up, and instead of saying like, oh, we're going to get a League of Our Own, he's like, this would have tied into the Batman movie, because they said the solo Batman movie was going to be Deathstroke systematically destroying Bruce Wayne's life.
Right.
He tells Deathstroke like, hey, Batman's Bruce Wayne, we should be friends, which I think is better than a League of Our Own from Joss Whedon's version. But then we get Batman waking up from a dream and he sees Martian Manhunter. Martian Manhunter's just like, hey, I didn't help you out this time, but next time an alien comes, I'm going to help you out. And Batman's just like, that was weird.
Yeah, I hated that.
And then, so there was a second scene with Martian Manhunter, which to me doesn't make any sense other than they just wanted to put the character in, because Martian Manhunter pretends to be Martha Kent going to Lois Lane saying, hey, you need to go and live your life and get over my son. And then she turns into Martian Manhunter. So
so the big reveal of that scene is that Martha Kent is not actually as nice as we thought she was.
I guess.
She cares less about Lois Lane. Okay.
So my buddy Jack was the reporter in the Joss Whedon version, when because in the original version, Lois Lane went back to work, but she wasn't doing like the big, serious pieces.
Puff pieces.
She was doing puff pieces. So there's this reporter who comes in and is like, hey, Lois, Perry gave me your story. I need your sources so I can go and write the story. And she doesn't give it to him. That guy was my friend Jack Yang. He asked me, he was like, hey, I'm not going to watch it this weekend. Let me know if I'm in it. But apparently he was like the scene where somebody goes and talks to Lois, like, hey, you need to come back to work. I guess he was supposed to do that scene too, but they rewrote it to be Martian Manhunter. So he got cut out of this movie.
Yeah, that sucks.
That's my friend Jack.
He got cut out of the movie for a scene that's stupid anyway.
Yep. So now we get to the nightmare scene. So the movie ends after all these prologues with this big speech about hope, and then Martian Manhunter coming in and being like, hey, you've got allies. Like, I'm here to help you out too, just so you know. Call me next time. Like, so it's like this really inspiring, what's supposed to be an inspiring ending, and then it's just kneecapped by a post-apocalyptic nightmare scene.
That's such a good way to put it. My note is literally all that goodwill undone with the Joker scene, and what the fuck was the last 15 minutes?
Yeah, so we get this like long scene where you see like these spaceships flying around on Earth, and it's post-apocalyptic world, and Batman comes out. So it's Batman, Deathstroke, Mira, Flash, the same version of Flash that we saw in Batman v Superman when he goes back in time to tell Batman like keep Lois safe, and then the beard. Joker. and they keep referring to him. So you think they mean Darkseid, like, oh, be quiet, like he's gonna find you, and like everybody's like fucking hates Batman. Everyone's like, it's your fault, Batman, but we don't actually hear what happened. Of course, this was supposed to be in part 2 and part 3 of the Justice League, but then there's this extended dialogue between the Joker, and like there's like a reach around joke, and him just
Mira also digs into him, in a really obnoxious way. I guess like she doesn't know that his parents died, but we know that, so it's kind of just like, why is she being so mean to Batman?
Like you don't know anything about Lost, and it's just like, most of the world's dead. Like everybody knows a little bit about Lost, Mira.
And also like nobody puts on a fucking mask and fights crime for 30 plus years, however many years it is now, because they're in the future, because they haven't lost anybody. Like obviously he has.
Yeah,
it feels bratty.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and it's weird because Mira has a British accent in this, and she has an American accent in Aquaman. Well, this just shows
that's
that
their Wanda.
They were all disjointed anyway, because like in this version, like the Atlanteans don't speak underwater. They have to create like air bubbles so they can talk.
Right. No, they chirp at each other. They chirp at each other.
Yeah, and then they make the bubbles, and then they can talk. And Aquaman, they just talk underwater.
The chirping was so annoying.
Yeah, it's fucking weird. So the Joker basically is like, oh yeah, he totally knows about law. They all know he's Bruce Wayne because like he went around the world telling everybody who's Bruce Wayne, putting together the Justice League. So at this point, everybody knows he's Bruce Wayne.
Well, also, who cares who Bruce Wayne is anymore? The world's gone.
Yeah, there's no money. But yeah, the Joker's like, yeah, he lost his mom and his dad. I killed his adult son, referring to to Robin. And then he says, like, you can't kill me. Who's going to give you a reach around? So, like, is he, like, Batman and Joker have some weird sex thing? I don't know. It's weird that the Joker would say it for no reason. But then Superman shows up.
Also, I feel like there's a few scenes in this movie where Bruce tells Alfred that he has to have faith in something. And it feels like they're really trying to make Bruce Wayne like sort of Christian without saying it, like he's a born again.
Well, and that's a common critique that people have had for Zack Snyder for a long time. Like the first Justice League Snyder Cut trailer had Hallelujah, the same version that he had in Watchmen, and like Superman's like very, very heavy-handed a Jesus allegory in both movies.
Well, he does like somehow he manages to do a bigger Christ pose in this movie than he did in Man of Steel.
Oh, when he goes over the entire planet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous.
He just goes up into space like after, and so he goes to his mom, then he goes and visits Alfred to find out where his crew's going, and then he goes up into space to overlook all of Earth, and he just like he has his feet together and his hands out. Like he's on a cross.
It's real heavy-handed.
Yep.
I will say I enjoyed this Joker, the Jared Leto Joker in this movie, besides a couple of the weird comments. I had moments where I dug it, but I also think he was doing a really good Heath Ledger impression. So I don't think it's anything original.
But I even think his version in Suicide Squad was very Heath Ledger-y at certain points, like his voice and his manner, like his timing was
I
very
don't even
Heath
remember.
Ledger.
I blocked it from my memory.
I tried to watch it like 6 months or so ago, and I couldn't.
But yeah, I think a lot of the hate for Jared Leto's Joker is because of David Ayer's ideas. I think he's the one that put the damage tattoo on there and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I also kind of appreciated that they were trying to go a different direction and make him sort of a gangster and stuff. And I think a lot of it is also people have like a very justified bias against Jared Leto. Like that dude sucks for sure.
Yeah.
But if I look at this performance in a vacuum, it's kind of interesting. I wouldn't be upset about seeing a little bit more of that. Yeah.
I didn't hate it.
What I hated about that scene is the way that Zack Snyder tried to shoot it or shot it. Like it's all out of focus for half of it. It's super
it's weird,
disorienting and weird.
And
let me just get a good look at the guy.
This is the only new footage they shot for this.
It looks like shit. Doesn't get me excited about his zombie heist movie.
No, that trailer sucks.
I haven't watched it.
Oh, the trailer was terrible for the Army of the Dead. But yeah, as I was saying,
I like that Jared Leto calls Mira a fish stick.
Yeah,
and what does he call her? A something flounder, a smelly flounder. That was funny.
But I think this scene should have been what Cyborg saw when he had his vision.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. One more ridiculous piece of dialogue from this that jumped out at me. Batman says, "And make no mistake, I will fucking kill you."
Cyborg had an F-bomb too.
So I didn't that didn't even register to me. Like, who cares? But Batman saying I will fucking kill you, like, fuck off.
Yeah.
And especially
Yeah.
when we know that Zack Snyder's not going to do his version of Dark Knight Returns. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It just it's so like try hardy. It's so
I
thirsty.
so I think like this ending just kind of ruined. I don't want to say ruined it because it is a better experience than the original one.
Yeah.
But I also don't think it's fit. Like a lot of people, like the internet collectively seems to like this movie. I think it's great as a miniseries because I know a lot of people watch that way. A lot of like reviews that I've seen for it mentioned watching it over the course of 3 days, like watching 2 sections at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can absolutely do that. I stopped at I watched parts 1, 2, and 3 on Thursday, and then I watched 3, 4, 5, 6, and the epilogue on Friday. And it works that way. Like I was totally cool watching it that way. But to think that this movie was ever going to be in such a way that it could have been a theatrical, it's absurd. Like in no way could this movie have ever worked theatrically or been successful commercially because they just didn't put the work in with the solo movies, like we've said multiple times. So yes, this is a better version, but I don't think you can to look at this and say we should give Zack Snyder 2 more Justice League movies. Like people are saying we need to restore the Snyderverse now, and we need to do his multiple movies. And
you know what's interesting?
Is a win.
What's interesting about that is that it feels like obviously it's not going to happen. But then again, we also thought the Snyder cut wasn't ever going to come out, so who knows? But WB and DC are saying that the Joss Whedon version is canon, and that's what's happening in the DC universe. But apparently, I've read this: all of the directors of these movies, or runners of these franchises, are adhering to the Snyder version.
Well,
so
and
I don't know what
now that
happens.
you have the different Joker movie, the different Batman movie. When Aquaman kind of came out, they were kind of like, yeah, they're loosely tied together, but you can look at they've been saying you can now look at all these movies as like standalone movies that are very loosely connected. But I was reading something on Friday because this crashed the HBO Max on Thursday night when it dropped at midnight. Like it crashed it, and like they saw a huge surge of people signing up for it. So it's like they're gonna go. Maybe we should. I saw Warner Bros. Like a headline saying Warner Brothers is now considering reinstoring the Snyderverse, and I think people are taking the wrong message. Yes, this was better than Justice League 2017 theatrical, but by no way can you say this is a win because this was never going to be viable to release. Like there was no way you could make this movie in a way you can put it in a theater.
But you know what? This movie did end up happening, and people do like it, and the filmmakers are backing this vision apparently. So,
yeah, no, I
it
get it.
It doesn't matter if it wouldn't have worked as a movie in 2017. Like it happened.
Yeah,
it's out.
Well, my
it's
point
out
is just like I don't think you can look at this and say we should go make these other movies. Like I think maybe if they do another Justice League from Zack Snyder, I think it should be a miniseries. I'm just saying it should be a miniseries, not a movie, because this movie shows he can come up with a singular vision, he can execute it, but can he execute it in a way that you can put it on a cinema screen? I think the answer is no.
I think there's a world in which there's 2 or 3 DC movies that I don't even know what they have coming up on their schedule. I guess Black Adam, Suicide Squad,
Shazam 2,
and
Flash.
So I think there's a world in which we get like 5 years where there are, maybe not even 5 years, maybe a little bit less, of movies that don't directly reference Justice League, but they sort of hint at things and they like get people to build theories. And then Zack Snyder has his big return where he does a second Man of Steel with Henry Cavill.
That would be great. I'd be totally on board with that. But I think if they do go with another Justice League, because he's pretty much at this point, even before this cut came out, he pretty much told us on whatever that weird social media was that was a flash in the pan, like Vimo or whatever it was called. Vero, yeah. And then
still on it.
And Twitter and everything. Like he's released everything. Like we saw the Black Costume, we saw Martian Manhunter, we saw Deathstroke before even the theatrical cut came out. He revealed all this stuff. So if he goes forward with this plan, I'm just saying make it a miniseries event. Like do it like Falcon and Winter Soldier kind of thing. Like make it be the 4-hour series. Don't try to make a movie because it's not going to be good.
I
That's
don't
my
think
advice.
I don't think Zach would come back to do just TV miniseries. I think that dude wants to live on the big screen.
Yeah, I think you're
Um,
right. Well,
but I wouldn't be
does he
surprised
though?
if he produces something.
So we didn't mention the aspect ratio of this at all.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so it's 4:3. It's IMAX. It looks like TV. I think that he wanted that to be premiered theatrically. Obviously, I
Yeah.
think he still thinks that this is going to come out theatrically at some point. I think he wants to do like he probably wants to do like a road show or something like Tarantino did with Hateful Eight and do like an intermission and shit. But I read something where it seemed like he thought that this was still going to come out theatrically for limited engagement. And I think he still wants to be on the big screen. I think the fact that it's in IMAX is proof that he wants to be on the big screen.
Yeah, but it's weird. Like his explanation, like, so you and I text each other. We both hated that it was 4:3.
Yeah.
And I don't think it
I will
anything.
say I don't think it added anything, and I think it would have been better widescreen, but I also forgot at points that I hated it. So
Yeah, I settled in and didn't notice it anymore, but his explanation was these characters are larger than life, so we want to see more of them in the frame, so I made it taller. But he also shot this in 16:9 and just shot it in such a way that he could crop it. So he's not getting any more vertical scope of the characters. He just doesn't have anything on the sides.
Did he shoot it? I thought he shot it all IMAX.
No, this was not shot in IMAX. He shot it in. So he actually said in an interview like that this was shot for normal like scope 16. Well, not 16:9. The 18.35 by 1. You know, the wider, the ultra wide. That would still have black bars even on a 16:9 TV on the top and bottom. So he shot this in ultra wide. But the way he set up the cinematography is he framed every shot where it could be cropped in a 4:3.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you're still shooting in the ultra wide, then you're not getting that vertical length that he talked about and said is the reason why he wanted to do. So he aesthetically,
it's a higher. If he shot, if it depends on what film he shot on. If he shot on 70 millimeter, then it is higher.
This wasn't shot on
resolution.
film. This was shot on digital. I don't remember what the type of camera was. It starts with an A. The type of camera was like Arios or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, he didn't. So that's my point. Is like he gave a reason as to why he did it that way, but the reason doesn't actually end up matching what's on screen. It's he's the director. It's his artistic vision. I just don't agree with it, but that's not my place.
Well, I mean, I'll do my own little dive into this, but if he shot it like on 8K, for instance, then the resolution is so high that you can crop it on the sides, and it'll still be, it'll still have the same vividness or whatever as something shot in 4K.
Yeah. And that's totally true. A lot of it, like I used to sell cameras and people would always be like, well, why would I ever buy a 4K video camera? Everything's going to be 1080p. I'm like, well, you do the 4K because you can do digital pans, digital zooms, crop and not lose resolution. So yeah, absolutely. You're right on that front. I'm just saying like, if you film it in such a way that it's going to work for the ultra wide, you're not going to get the benefits of the length that he was talking about. Like he was talking about making Batman look taller and seeing more of his body on screen. And you don't get that because of the way it was filmed. But, whatever.
I mean, I get where he's going with that, but that's a conversation for another time. I will say if he intended it to be on TV or whatever, if IMAX is the argument for him wanting it to be on TV, like it's 4:3, so it looks more like a TV. Nobody has TVs like that anymore.
Yeah.
So it doesn't like play better at home because it looks like a TV. Nobody has that. Everybody has widescreen.
Yep.
So I think it's just Zack Snyder going up his own ass.
So I pretty much gave my piece on it. I think it's better, but I don't think it's necessarily a win because I don't think it could have ever been viable the way that he wanted to be on screen. So, but it is a better version.
Yeah, I think it's a much better version of the film. I'll probably check it out again in pieces. I don't think it's a great film. I don't think that he's made his masterpiece or anything. I think it's just fine, but I'm glad that he got to got to execute his vision. I don't know. I'm not even going to argue it against it being called a win, but I think it's unprecedented. The fact that a movie of this size got to be remade the way that the director wanted to be with a wide release, even if it's not theatrical, this is going to get, theatrical eyes. It's going to get that amount of people seeing it. And the fact that it's happening now when we have these, the streaming wars going on and everybody's locked inside during the pandemic, it's it is kind of a game changer on some levels.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to see what happens with the DC universe moving forward, and just sort of generally with like, you know, it's not just Zack Snyder's Justice League, but all of these blockbusters that are getting released directly to video.
Yeah.
This is a unique entry in, you know, that part of the pandemic. So
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what happens.
That's
with it.
true. So I said earlier, I think it was like when I saw the original version in 2017, walking out of the theater, I would have given it an F.
Yeah, I gave it half a star.
Today, you know, watching it, and I think part of it was me going in with such low expectations. I would give it like a D plus. The Zack Snyder, I give like a C plus. I think there's nothing in it that's game changing or incredible. It's competent for a 4-hour film.
Yeah, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it, but I don't think it's doing anything groundbreaking. I think there's a lot of missteps, and also a lot of moments that were fun and resonated really well. But, you know, perfect example is that epilogue. I don't know how you make this movie. I don't know how you put that in there and think that it's a good decision, the epilogue.
It should have been in the middle of the movie when Cyborg had his vision.
Yeah, it's just so clearly a shitty way to end this movie.
Or have that be the beginning of the movie with Batman. Like, have Batman have that dream in the middle somewhere. And
or don't include it at all.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you want it in there, I understand it was important to him, but there's a way that you can put it that doesn't undercut the rest of the movie. Like, it ended on a hopeful, optimistic tone, and then to throw that in, it should have been in the middle.
Yeah. He managed to make Black Suit Superman, who we just saw beating the shit out of somebody, still feel hopeful at the end, and then blew it with the last 15 minutes.
I agree. But that was, God, this is an episode we've been talking about for a year. It's finally over.
We did it.
And yeah, that's it. We talked it to death, man. Tell us where our listeners can find you.
Yeah, if you're not tired of hearing me talking yet, you can check me out on Twitter at Pulisci, Pulisci. I'm also on Letterboxd if you want to follow along with what I'm watching at Pulisci. And I'm on Instagram at Dysalexic, DYSAlexIC.
And you can follow everything that's MDXpods related at MDXpods.com, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at MDXpods. If you want to support this show, you can go to patreon.com/MDXpods. But that's it. We're done. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye.